With your connection to agriculture, I'm Joanna Guza. AM radio and its rural connections. Rod Bain reports.
AM radio. Even with competition over the decades, over-the-air analog television, FM radio, Citizens Band radio, 8-track tapes, cassettes, compact disc, Bluetooth, streaming services, digital whatever, it remains an essential source of news, information, and entertainment, particularly in rural America.
Many people don't have the high-speed internet yet, so they rely on their AM radio to get their information.
Sean Voskuhl is with the American Association of Retired Persons, and he says radio, AM radio in particular, also has a social connection to rural listeners.
There's an oversample of older Americans that live in rural areas, and so they're the primary listeners to AM radio. We know that.
The sentiment about radio listeners in rural America and across the country and the stations they listen to is echoed by Manny Centeno, a program manager for the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
They want hyperlocal information, that's my understanding. They want to know what's going on in their communities. They want to have a psychological connection.
There is news over the past 2 years of some automobile manufacturers considering, if not already removing, AM radio receivers from new vehicles. The idea is for manufacturers to instead offer streaming and subscription services for a fee, and in turn, create another source of revenue. However, those types of moves have raised questions about potential impacts to public safety. Centeno is quick to point out AM radio is what he calls the backbone of FEMA's National Emergency Warning System.
We reach more people over AM radio than any other medium can. National Public Warning System is made up of over 77 radio stations located around the country. We reach 90% of the U.S. population with those 77 facilities, most of which are AM stations.
The proof to Centeno of AM radio's significance as a public safety alert tool, a recent study conducted by the Department of Homeland Security on behalf of FEMA.
We wanted to know if our taxpayer investment dollars were going in the right direction. We are actively upgrading AM radio stations, spending millions of dollars at each site to make them more resilient and make them more available.
Among the upgrades he is referring to, electromagnetic pulse shelters designed to prevent disruptions of signal transmission in the event of an emergency. Another example of AM radio and its importance in an emergency.
A lot of folks in large cities are going to tell you, I don't listen to the radio, but they do. I remember in the derecho, I think it was like 2012 or 2013, there was this big straight line storm that came through D.C. and power cell phones were out. There was no other way to communicate but radio, and radio became the very dominant media in that area. And a lot of younger folks were telling me, I didn't know this much information existed on radio.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.